Arizona went into Stores, Connecticut and claimed the best win of the college basketball season and the #1 ranking along with it. Bear down, baby.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network around. I'm your host, Leaf Tulane, your resident college basketball guru, stats nerd, point guard by game, and ball knower by trade. And boy, am I excited to talk Arizona hoops with you. What a win. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app, so download the app today. Today on the show, I'll go through in detail how Arizona beat UConn, how they did it, what swung the game in Arizona's favor, and what it means going forward for Arizona, both immediately and down the road in the future. So let's dive right in without further ado. Arizona 71, UConn 67 from Gampel Pavilion in Stores, Connecticut. Arizona won with physically overwhelming UConn and a defense that is suffocating. And that bodes even better than any other way that could have happened for Arizona to win, because we all know how good Arizona is on offense and how good they can be on offense, because I don't think they're close to their ceiling there. I'm going to start this off with a quote from the opposing coach, a notoriously temperamental, but in this case, a good-spirited after a loss, Danny Hurley. He said, plain and simply, we got punked. It's going to be a bad film session coming out of here. There was a street fight going on in the paint. You can't stand on the outside when your buddies are in the fight. And that is the other side of the coin. Arizona dominated on the paint. And they had the bigger bodies. They had a concerted effort of dominating the paint because Terrace Reed, in my opinion, UConn's best player. In my opinion, their most important player, because he allows them to have a kind of balanced attack, not in terms of scoring, but in terms of they can play inside-outside ball through Terrace Reed. He was out, and as soon as that happened, I thought Arizona should dominate the glass and just needs to run solo ball off the line. I've tweeted that out. Arizona was plus 20 on the glass. They had 42 points in the paint, were able to get 13 offensive rebounds and 16 second chance points. That is a level of dominance on the interior that will win you ball games. And it is particularly impactful that they were able to do so against a team lacking their starting center. That said, Eric Riba is really good as their backup center. They have a two-headed monster up front like they have had the last couple of years. Additionally, Arizona was able to win this game without what I'd call a very good offensive performance altogether. Arizona was the better team and generated better shots all night, but left a lot hanging. I think I'm going to start with the negative here before working to the positive, because they work hand in hand. Arizona was up 35-33 at half and was the better team by far. To only be up by 2 was a travesty, because they got solo ball, Alex Karaman, Eric Riba, and Silas Demery, the 4 best players for the Huskies tonight, with 2 fouls, with 4 minutes to go in the first half. And they did not make any headway to make this game more in favor of Arizona. Instead, Arizona kind of played it to a stalemate, played complacently, in my opinion. Did not push that lead. I thought, oh man, they might regret that. And then they came out in the second half and played super aggressively and got to the rim and scored 14 of the first 18 points of the second half from inside the paint. And that is where their bread is buttered. I've said this 1,000 times. Arizona's going to have a repeatable and excellent offense, because where they score is easy shots. Even if they have a bad day shooting, which in my opinion they did today, both from 3 and from 2, they were still able to generate great looks because their offense is sustainable. Now, the other thing, without burying the lead, is Arizona's best 2 players, Peat and Jaden Bradley, played like All-Americans. And when you go on the road and you play a team as well coached and as talented as UConn, you need to have your dudes play like dudes, and you ideally hope for the supporting cast to play well. But you need the dudes to play like dudes, and they did. They combined for 37 points. Peat had 16 points, 12 rebounds, and I think he could have done even more. I think he was at times timid. He should have been more aggressive because he was great in this game. And Jaden Bradley, at the end of the game, hit a big jump shot, when the momentum was on the side of the Huskies. And at the very end, that up fake, up and under pirouette was beautiful to score and beat the buzzer and put Arizona up by 3. And shout out Tobe Awaka for finishing the game with free throws. But let's go back to the defense. And now this is the best, the positive. I said the negative was Arizona was leading by 2 at half. Well, that's a great thing because I talked about how UConn's a really good front running team. And on a true road game, you do not want to fall behind. That was one of the keys I gave. We'll discuss all the keys and how they went coming up next. But let's talk about the identity for Arizona. Arizona under Tommy Lloyd has been top 10, or I guess top 11, 3 of the 4 years offensively. Sorry, all 4 years they've been top 11. 3 of the 4 years they've been top 10 offensively under Tommy Lloyd. They've played quickly many of the years. This year haven't had to, and they've still been productive offensively. But what won them this game, what won the game against UCLA, is fantastic interior defense and a true emerging star on one side of the ball that is getting better on the other. Mo Krivas, you can make the argument that even with Jaden Bradley and Peat playing like All-Americans, you can make the argument the best player on the court today was Mo Krivas. Mo Krivas changed everything for UConn. UConn was shooting mid-range jump shots, which they very rarely do. They're a very analytically oriented team that shoots threes or layups. Well, Terrace Reed was out. They wouldn't get as many layups anyway because Arizona didn't need to double. But Arizona won a game against UCLA by playing switching defense at the end of the game and disrupting their offense by making them stagnant by switching. Against UConn, it's the exact opposite. They played a deep drop coverage, dared Eric Ryba to shoot. He actually hit a couple of them and played very well. But Mo Krivas controlled the paint, loomed large defensively, altered the shots and shot chart. And I've said that numerous times. But Arizona's a top 10 defense in this sport, and they will be a top 10 offense. And that makes them a true national championship contender. Like, that's the plain and simple point to make. If Arizona's winning games with their defense and their offense is only going to get better, watch out, world. And they punked UConn on the glass. Krivas had 14 boards. 14 boards. Between he, Peat, and Tobe Awaka, they had 33 rebounds, which is 10 greater than UConn had as a whole. This is a dominant front court. They out-rebounded Florida, who was plus 40 against North Florida on the glass. This is a team that's really, really good and understands what they do well and are only going to get better. We're going to talk about that a little bit later too, and how much growth there is, because I think for the team that should be the number one team in the country, after beating UConn at UConn, after beating UCLA in Inglewood, and after beating the defending champions on opening night, all 3 of which Arizona was favored to lose prior to the season. They were expected to lose by 5 against Florida. They were expected to lose by 4.5 against UCLA. By the time the game happened, Arizona was favored by 1. And then they were expected to lose by 6.5 in this one. And then Terrace Reed news was out and then dropped to 4.5. But anyway, all 3 of these teams were ahead. Number 3, Florida. Number 4, UConn. Number 12, UCLA, ranked all ahead in the first AP poll above Arizona that was 13. Arizona's by far got the best resume in college basketball. They already did before this win, and now have the best individual win of the entire season, having beaten UConn at UConn. Arizona's number 1 team in the country, have tons of room to continue to grow because a lot of their pieces that we thought would be vital have not performed well yet. And I don't think UConn played well offensively in 2 of their big 3 wins. We got that and a lot more coming ahead, including the keys to the game right around the corner on Locked On Wildcats. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets, and when your first $5 bet wins, you can head to FanDuel and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the number 1 sports podcast network all around. We really appreciate it. I'm Leaf Tulane, host of Locked On Wildcats with you here. And before getting into the keys, I just want to make a very obvious point. Arizona was the better team all night long. They got better shots, were the more physical team, they were the more poised team, and they stayed within themselves better. I will say there's the caveat: Terrace Reed, who I think is UConn's best player, did not play. I will be bothered by a UConn fan who was in my game night who was talking about how Mullins is out. Mullins hasn't played college basketball, but yeah, fair point. The depth was compromised for UConn. But Arizona had a game plan that was, you know what? We're going to run solo ball off the line. He's not going to get open threes. Alex Caravan is perpetuated into a higher role than he's used to playing. And last year struggled in a role that wasn't the fourth best player, the fifth best player on a championship team, and stays the second best player. And he once again did not play particularly well. Did hit a big three to make it 58-57 and cut the lead down to 1. But Arizona's game plan was good. They executed better in the half court, scored, and Arizona won a game in which they had 0 fast break opportunities. They only had 1 fast break point, which is AK they made a free throw in a fast break. They only forced 5 turnovers. This is a team that gets out and runs, and their tempo's alarmingly fast many, many times. And they score up, like they scored 26 points in transition in one of their games already, and points off of turnovers alone. They scored 26 on fast break points alone against Utah Tech. And they scored 1. And they only forced 5 turnovers, all of which were dead ball turnovers. UConn played well in some facets of the game and showed impressive result. But Arizona was the better team the entire night. I thought they should have been up 10 at half, and I don't think this game should have been as close as it was. But sometimes when a game gets close and you've been the better team, it gets really nervy. It gets really scary to play a game like that because, oh my goodness, you've deserved the win. Can you go out and seize it? And they did. Now let's visit some keys and talk about the numbers that I gave with the keys. So the first thing I always talk about with Arizona, or at least often, is you got to win the glass. And against Florida, they won by 2. Against UCLA, they won by 7. But I said they need to win the glass by more in this game because UConn wasn't particularly strong on the glass, and they were missing Terrace Reed. Well, they dominated the glass, plus 20 on the glass, and I wanted second chance points because in a game like this, you need easy baskets. And Arizona actually missed some bunnies, but Arizona generated 16 second chance points, which was better than they have in any of the other games. And they did not score in transition, so they didn't generate many open looks and did not score particularly well, so those were extra important. So my goal was win the glass by 5 or more. They won by 20. The second goal about dominating the interior is the one that I actually think was more vital and should be the one Arizona wins every single game they play. It's win this matchup by 20 or more in terms of points in the paint plus free throws made over the other team's points in the paint plus free throws made. Arizona scored 42 points in the paint and added 19 free throws made. That's 61. UConn ended up with 33, with 24 in the paint and 9 free throws made. So that is plus 28 for Arizona. That is monumental. That is absolutely pivotal in a matchup like this. And it also made UConn one-dimensional. UConn became a 3-point happy team. This is a team that shoots it well. They entered the game shooting 40.3% from the three-point line, and they shoot it more prolifically than Arizona does, even though Arizona entering this game shot well. But it made UConn one-dimensional because they needed threes to stay in this game. But if Arizona knows UConn needs threes because they're patrolling the paint, Mo Krivas is looming large in the paint and dominating on one side offensively, Arizona scoring that many in the paint, and then on the other side, they're able to create a spot of, okay, the only way to stay up with this team is make threes, but then they run you off the line. Arizona's going to have a better recipe to win than anyone in the country. By the way, I just thought of this. I didn't say this in postcast. I found my notes. It says, and this is from the preview, and you guys can fact check it. I said, I expect Arizona to score 15 points in the paint with 45 points in the paint with 15 free throws made. And ideally, UConn's kept under 40 points in the paint plus free throws. Arizona will win if that happens. Well, Arizona, that's 60 points, and they scored 61. So I was pretty spot on there, and I said UConn under 40, and they were at 33. I'm pretty happy with that. So the next key goes in hand with dominating the paint and making UConn one-dimensional shooting threes. The next key was stay competitive in three-pointers made. Arizona did not do this, and that's why UConn was able to stay in this game because Arizona was not able to punish when doubles would come because they generated great looks but only went 2 of 10 from 3. UConn went 8 of 25, which is 32%. And honestly, you're going to be pretty happy with UConn shooting 32% because they run great stuff and they shoot 40% as a team. But 8 threes is a lot more than 2 threes, and it allowed UConn to stay in this game. I mentioned that UConn scores over 50% of their points in the paint. Over 50% of their points from 2. And They shoot 65% from two, making a ton of their fairly few attempts from two. And in this game, Arizona held UConn at 25-56 from the field, which is 8 of 25 from three, meaning that they went 17 of 31 from two. That's still good, but it's a lot worse. And they hit a lot of mid-range jump shots, which is a alteration in the shot chart that is very important to recognize because UConn doesn't shoot mid-range jump shots frequently. So essentially, that boils down to UConn should, this is my keys, should have fewer easy baskets than Arizona. They should have fewer easy baskets from Terrace Reed, who did not play. I'm reading my notes. And it says that if that happens, they'll need more threes to stay in this game. But Arizona, unlike some, won't have to double and therefore should have a more repeatable way to score baskets. That seemed true. Arizona was the better team all night, got better looks. They could score those. And honestly, I felt like Arizona left a lot of points hanging on the table, both missing front end to 1-and-1s and able to, score baskets that they probably would have made. Bradley missed a bunny. Delorso missed a bunny. Peat missed a couple. And then the last one I had, so the numerical number before I get to the last note was I wanted Arizona to be within 15 points from three. They actually were minus 18 in the three-point department. But I also think that the fact that they can win a game against Florida and against against Florida and against UConn by making 4 combined threes speaks so highly of this team's future. We'll talk about that in a moment. The last key that I want to tell you guys about that I laid out was starting well. And Arizona has fallen behind by double digits against Florida and showed resolve and came back in that game. I didn't think Florida was that great. And I didn't think that before the season too. But they showed resolve, and that's a team that's capable of front running. But Arizona found a way to win those games and lead by halftime. This game, it was more important to get a good start because you play on the road in a hostile environment and you have young players that play pivotal roles in your team. And communication defensively against UConn's a must. And the fact that they were up early in this game, controlling tempo, maybe not controlling tempo, but controlling actions. They were getting the better shots. They were making UConn uncomfortable. And they could do so early and often in this game was huge because if you fall behind against UConn, I think Arizona changes the way they play. And instead, Arizona was the team that stayed more true to their identity than UConn, who shot mid-range jump shots, who had to change the way they were playing. And then the other point that I would have made statistically would be whose other guys, the Ivan Karchenkov, the Braden Burries, the Delorsos of the world play better. And UConn honestly wins this battle partially because they needed to do more with Terrace Reed out. And I think UConn's depth was tested having missed 2 players that are in the rotation. But Mullins hasn't played this year, so I don't think that really should be a factor. But Terrace Reed absolutely is a factor to be missing. It moved Eric Ryba, who performed admirably, up. It made Ross's contributions far, far more important. And he was very, very good. So I would say UConn's other guys outperformed Arizona's, and Arizona still won at UConn because they were dominant in the paint and their defense looks legitimate. They look the part. And when you look the part and you can travel across the country, as far as you can really go across the country, into a hostile environment of a team that has Final Four aspirations and win, whether they have Terrace Reed or not, it means a ton to me because I think Arizona's got a ton of room to grow and are nowhere near their ceiling. We'll discuss that next on Locked On Wildcats. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. I'm Leaf Tulane, host of Locked On Wildcats, and I love college hoops. But games like that just make me so happy to see the intensity and the growth of a team throughout a season. And that's what we're going to talk about. Arizona, at this point already, has the best resume. They had it prior to the game. They have the best resume now by far with 3 wins over teams that were AP top 12 prior to the season. None of them at home, one a true road game and the other one very close to a true road game playing in UCLA. And they've won 3 games that the analytics people tell you they're going to lose. I've said this 1,000 times. I'll toot my own horn a little bit here. I told you Arizona would be #1 in the country by January because they'd start 18-2, meaning 11-2 or better in non-conference. And I even said 19-1, and they would go 19-1 because they start really hot in conference play as well with a favorable beginning schedule. And then you play 500 ball the rest of the way, and you should be a 1 seed. But Arizona's right now the #1 team in the country. And I don't think they're playing that well. They're playing as the best team in the country, but they have such preventable things that have hurt them a little bit, and so many things that will get better with more experience because 4 of their 8 main rotational pieces are freshmen. So here are 3 things that I think bode supremely well for Arizona. The pace for Florida versus and UCLA were completely diametrically opposed. Arizona could not have played faster against Florida, having over 80 possessions in that game versus just 69 against UCLA. And the pace we thought would be great for Arizona. The faster it gets, they're going to play great. Well, they've just won 2 games and basically road environments against UCLA and a true road game against UConn in which pace was slow, which is preferred by UConn and UCLA. So they won a race and they won a rock fight. The pace of UConn UCLA was similar, but one game you had the All-American co-op Peat, and the other one you had a non-factor co-op Peat. And yet Arizona still was able to win both those games and led at half of both those games and were the better team throughout those games. And so the recipe is completely different for all 3 of those games. But one thing's for certain, the hierarchy is clear. It's co-op Peat and Jaden Bradley, and they know how to support one another as a team. When co-op Peat did not perform very well, Anthony Delorso, Tobe Awaka, Mo Krivas, and Jaden Bradley carried the torch. In this game, Mo Krivas was fantastic. Jaden Bradley and co-op Peat were fantastic, and that's what it takes to win against a top 4 team in the land on their home court. You need your stars to play like stars. But this is why I'm so bullish about Arizona. Their freshmen have had freshman pains, including co-op Peat. Ivan Karchenkov has not shot well since beating Florida, and he played well in this game. I want to say, though I think the ancillary pieces of UConn outperformed the ancillary pieces of Arizona, Ivan Karchenkov was good in this game. He mattered. Braden Burries got into foul trouble, looked sped up and bad against Florida, had a game where he scored 18, but it was 7-16 shooting, and then was unimportant in the next 2 games. And then this one, he started off slowly. I thought played well defensively, had 2 buckets in the second half. He's going to get better. I still think he'll end up being the 3rd leading scorer on this team with like 11 points per game because it's going to be an egalitarian affair behind co-op Peat and Jaden Bradley, who are going to lead with about 16 apiece. And it's going to be 10 from Krivas, 10 from Burries, and you're going to get 7 or 8 from Karchenkov, 7 or 8 from Awaka. The hierarchy is clear, though. It's the top 2 dudes and the rest support, and you can win multiple ways. The identity's very clear as well. There's a clarity with which this team plays. You score on the inside. You know where your bread is buttered. You play quickly or slowly, but you still find the way to get to the rim, whether it's via penetration or feeds into the paint. You rebound the ball well, and defensively, you have multiple coverages that have already been explored, but they all feature one thing for certain. Mo Krivas on the floor makes Arizona a defensive monster that no one expected. No one expected Arizona to be this good defensively this early. I talked about how Mo Krivas was the key to this team. Arizona is now ranked 6th in KenPom, and they're 11th on offense and 10th in defense. And if you were to look at teams that have won championships in years past, they all rank top 20 in both. Arizona is on the borderline of top 10 in each. And I guaranteed you guys before the season, Arizona's going to be a top 20 offense, I thought top 20 pace. We'll see how that goes. I still think they're going to be pretty close to that. A top 15 rebounding margin team, and they certainly just proved my point there that I said that was looming, that Arizona would, not top 50 right now in offensive rebounding margin and playing on the offensive glass, and they were plus 20 against UConn, who's a good rebounding team. You look at that, and then you say, okay, well, what about defense? I tied Ryan Hammer, who popularized the trapezoid of excellence on, if you guys want to rewatch that. And I told him, I think Arizona's going to be a top 2 seed because they're going to be great in all these things. And the 4th thing I said was I think their defense will be top 25. And if they're top 20, then they're a Final Four contender. Well, they're top 10 because Mo Krivas changes everything on the backside. Against UCLA, UCLA shot from 2, 83% without Krivas and 28% when he was in the game. UConn shot pretty well from 2, and they hit hard shots, but Arizona generated easier shots all night. And Arizona's already there, but you look at Burries. Burries has been bad overall through 5 games. Aristote had 1 really good game, non-factor in 4. Karchenkov, I'd say he's 2 of 5 in good games. co-op Peat had 1 bad game and 2 games where he took his foot off the gas and then bye games. That didn't matter. You got 4 of your 8 stars bound to improve. And you're already the number 1 team in the land, in my opinion, both in terms of performance, but certainly by resume. You've proven you can win close games in hostile environments. You've proven you can win close games repeatedly, and you've proven you can win games in different manners, different tempos, different strengths of different games on the back of different players. They have an All-American forward and a potential All-American guard, but certainly an all-conference level guard. And you have complementary pieces like Mo Krivas, Tobe Awaka, Anthony Del Orso, who appreciate their role and are understanding and mature enough to sacrifice and play fewer minutes than they could elsewhere. This is a really bought-in team already, and that bodes well for the future. But what bodes the best is that 4 of the 8 will certainly get better. I've likened this team to Duke, and I got a lot of pushback. That was my second episode I ever did as the host of this show. And I said, Koa Peat's this team's Cooper Flagg, and Bradenberry's this team's Con Knipple. So far, I'm probably wrong about the Con Knipple part of that. However, the point I made was this team's going to be huge. They're going to change teams' shots, and they're going to rebound fantastically, and they have a mismatch-creating nightmare playing the 4 position. 3 of 4 in terms of those predictions is really good. And I think I'll be right in terms of top 10 offense, top 20 defense, top 20 rebounding, top 20 tempo. I think I'll be right about that. And therefore, if all those happen, I guarantee this team's a 1 or a 2 seed. And I think they're the best team in the Big 12. Houston's got some issues. I already said that I'd take them to win the Big 12 before the season. And you guys thought, oh, maybe he's ingratiating himself to us and trying to prove he's a fan or whatnot. No, I just study basketball religiously. And if a team can rebound the way Arizona's capable of, score the way they can, and I don't even think they're close to what they can scoring the ball, not to mention they've shot poorly. In the 2 of their games, I mean, they win 2 of 5 against Florida. So that's actually a good percentage. But volume is an indicator of trust of the shots. Arizona's never going to be a prolific 3-point shooting team, but not shooting them makes it hard to score so many points. It makes it hard to put up 100 spots and crooked numbers. But Arizona scored 93 points in the first 2 games of the season. Then they played 2 games that they scored 69 and 71 points respectively against defensively oriented and slow-paced teams. And they're able to win those games nonetheless. The 3-point shooting will improve in terms of made shots. And it will never become it's a live and die by the 3. They're going to live and never really die because they're going to shoot great shots from 2. It's just bonus. It's icing on the cake when the 3-point shooting improves. It's icing on the cake when your 4 freshmen get more experience and 2 or 3 of them become significantly more comfortable than they already are playing significant minutes for the number 1 team in the country. I'm extremely bullish about this team. I think they'll win the Big 12 because I think, like I said, if you are a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense, you're a Final Four contender. And that makes you a favorite to win your conference, of course. But I also think Houston's got more identity questions because they have to replace a lot of scoring, but also they have a defensive identity. They're going to be great on defense. You know that. But how well are they going to score against good teams? Can they score enough? And they're reliant on freshmen, more so than Arizona's reliant on freshmen. But their freshmen are performing better right now, and they're not winning as convincingly as Arizona is against Arizona's beating better teams. I think Houston and Arizona are the class of the Big 12. I don't think it's particularly close. I think Texas Tech and BYU are next. I think Iowa State's right in there with those guys. I think Kansas is a touch below those guys. But the top 6 of the Big 12 is great. Arizona's got one of the best non-conference schedules already, and they're 3-0. They could go 6-0 in non-conference against the good teams, 7-0 against the bad teams, and they could be number 1 in the country for a long while. They should be number 1 come Monday. Arizona has not reached its ceiling. They have tons of room to grow, but their floor is fantastic when they play with the top 10 defense because their offense is only going to get better. Arizona's legit. That's how I'll end this. Arizona is legit. Please let me know what you guys think. Where are your biggest concerns? Where do you think this team can stand to improve the most? And what have you been most impressed by? And thank you, as always, for tuning in to Locked On Wildcats. It means a ton to me. And as always, we appreciate you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen today. And for your second listen, check out Locked On Big 12. Drake Toll breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships and every game in between. Find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.